Welcome back to Spider Red. We'll go over the top 25 leading into Week 13, and then we'll discuss the results from Week 12. There were some really good games over the past weekend, and the rest of the field, 13 through 25, had a good bit of changes for me, and then the top 12 really only had one change, and I will go over that. So let's go ahead and start with number 12. At number 12, I have the Arizona Wildcats, and I'm going to explain why. I know the AP has them at 16. At number 11, AP has Penn State. Then they have Ole Miss at 12. I'm going to compare them to both real quick. First, Ole Miss. Ole Miss has one top 25 victory. And their two losses, they got spanked by Georgia. I mean, spanked by Georgia. And then against Alabama, they were in the game for the whole game, but they only scored 10 points. Look at what I put up on the board here. Arizona has quality wins. They played 5 straight top 20 matchups. At the time, 19 Washington, they beat Washington State at the time 44-6. Then they beat Oregon State 27-24. They beat 19 UCLA at the time 27-10. And then they destroyed Utah over the weekend 42-18. The same Utah team the week before had Washington on the ropes at halftime. Their only losses are to Washington by 7 points. USC was number 9 at the time. They only lost by 2. And then their second game of the season, they lost to Mississippi State by 7. So if you look at their resume, I just think it's better than Ole Miss, Penn State, LSU, and Oregon State that the AP has ranked in front of them right now. Let's talk about Penn State real quick. And Penn State, the AP and Penn State's just getting on my nerves. Penn State only has one top 25 victory, and that's against the pathetic Iowa Hawkeyes. And I'll talk about the Iowa Hawkeyes when I talk about my 13 through 25. That's their only top 25 win. Arizona has four top 25 wins. Their 3 losses are not that bad. If you look at Penn State's 2 losses, I know they're against a very good Ohio State and a very good Michigan defense, but they could not produce any offense. Also, Arizona's strength of schedule is 8th. Their defense is 40th. Their offense is 28th. I know Ole Miss's offense is ranked higher. They're the 12th best offense in the nation compared to Arizona. But their defense is worse, and they are very close in strength of schedule. Ole Miss is 5, and Arizona is 8. But that Georgia spanking that they received just drops me lower down the list for Ole Miss. If you look at what Arizona has done, I just think they're a better team than everyone else, and that's why I have them at number 12. They only have one game remaining. That's against their rival, Arizona State. Their player of the game this week is Tatearoa McMillan, their wide receiver number 4. He had 8 catches for 116 yards and a touchdown. He's actually the 14th in the nation in receiving. I'll put that down in their national rankings for offense and defense. I think Arizona is one of the better teams right now. A lot of people keep talking about the Pac-12 being a better conference this year, but nobody keeps rating them that way. I did, and that's why I have them at number 12. At number 11, I have the Oklahoma Sooners. They're staying put at number 11. I still think their quality win over Texas is still better than Penn State and Ole Miss, who is currently ranked higher in the AP. But their quality win over Texas, to me, jumps them ahead. If you look at their national rankings, they have the 7th best offense. Dylan Gabriel is an incredible quarterback. They got a good running game. As my player of the game for them over the weekend is Gavin Sawchuk, running back number 27. He had 107 yards rushing with a touchdown. And their defense has improved under Venerables. Each year it keeps improving. And I'm giving another guy co-MVP over the weekend, and that's Bowman Jr. He had a huge 100-yard pick six against BYU. Also, if you look at their national rankings under their defense ranking, number 69th, I put Billy Bowman Jr. He is tied for the second most interceptions in the nation with 5, and that interception over the weekend was pretty big. A quick summary on Oklahoma. They need a little help to get into the Big 12 championship, but I hope they get that shot. I'd love to see a rematch against their rival Texas. But for right now, I have them at number 11. At number 10, I had the Louisville Cardinals. I have them sticking at number 10. AP has them ranked at number 9. They will be going to the ACC Championship to play Florida State. They still have a tough matchup against Kentucky this week, so we'll see if they go into the ACC Championship with just that one loss. And that one loss is not a good loss. It is against Pitt. They got beat 38-21 in that game. They still have 2 good quality wins, one against Notre Dame and one against Duke. But if we look down to their rankings, they're 22nd in offense and 21st in defense. That's one of the most balanced that you'll see in the top 12. There's 2 other teams that have just a little bit of a better balance, and I'll get to those as well. And under that 21st ranked defense, I'd like to highlight one of their stars, and I've mentioned him before. It's Ashton Gillott. He is top 10 in the nation with 10 sacks. Now, their strength of schedule is only 67th. That should improve a little bit this week when they play Kentucky and if they get the win. For their MVP over the weekend, I'm going to take Jack Plummer. No, he's not related to Jake Plummer, but he wears number 13, he's the quarterback. He had 308 yards passing with 3 touchdowns and a pick. He was the quarterback under Coach Brom when they were both at Purdue, and I think that's why Coach Brom brought him in. He kind of knew the system, and he felt comfortable with the kid, and it's paying off. In his first year, he's going to an ACC championship, so congrats to Coach Brom. But that's who I have at number 10, and we'll move on. At number 9, I have the Missouri Tigers. I know they're a 2-loss team, and I have them over a 1-loss Louisville Cardinals team, but I think their 3 quality wins over Louisville's 2 just means a little more, and their defeats look a little better with losing to a good LSU team who might have the Heisman Trophy winner, and then the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs. They only lost 21-30 in a tough matchup. Over the weekend, they played Florida. Florida made some bad decisions towards the end of the game. They almost lost that game, but they drove at the very end and kicked a field goal with 5 seconds left to get the win over Florida to stay at 9-2. Their last game this week is against Arkansas, and then if they win, they'll probably fall into a New Year's Day bowl. Their player of the game over the weekend was Darius Robinson. He's the defensive lineman and wears number 6 with 5 tackles and a sack. If we look at their national rankings, their strength of schedule is 6. That's another reason I kind of like them a little more than Louisville right now. They have the 19th best offense, with Brady Cook is the 15th leading passer in the nation. And then you have Cody Schrader, who is 6th in the nation in rushing. And then they have the 50th ranked defense. I know Louisville has a little better of a defense. I would consider the SEC a little better of a conference this year, and that's why I would put Missouri over Louisville. Okay, now we can move on to the next spot. At number 8, I still have the Oregon Ducks. They had an easy game over the weekend with Arizona State. I'll go ahead and mention Bo Nix for their MVP over the weekend. He had 6 touchdown passes in the first half, which is pretty incredible. But they still have those 2 quality wins. I keep the Colorado, like I've said before, because of how much hype was going on at that time. And they dominated Utah with that 35-6 win. Their only defeat, we know, is against the Huskies of Washington. That good matchup, 36-33, which I think Dan Lanning, I'll keep mentioning this, I still think Dan Lanning made some poor 4th down decisions on that. Their national rankings, they have the 2nd best offense, led by the Heisman candidate, Bo Nix. Don't forget, they do have a decent running game. Their defense has really improved. They have the 16th best defense in the nation. But their strength of schedule is 67th. That's because they hadn't played some of the better top 25 teams of the Pac-12. That strength of schedule will improve this weekend when they play their in-state rival, Oregon State. And Oregon State is ranked 15th now, so that will help decrease that strength of schedule. So they control their own destiny. They win this weekend, they go play Washington again. If they lose, they open the door for Arizona to have a shot at going into the Pac-12 championship. But right now, I still have them at number 8 because they don't have the quality wins that Texas and Alabama has, and that's why they're still ranked below them. At number 7, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide. I still have them over Oregon because of their 3 quality wins. They have 3 top 25 wins to Oregon's 1. And their defeats are kind of similar. Both of those teams are still in the top 10. So I have them kind of teetering at that defeat. But because of their quality wins, I have them ahead of Oregon. Their last 2 remaining games, they have the Iron Bowl against their rival Auburn. They should be able to take care of them. And they've already clinched a spot to play Georgia in the SEC championship, which they could knock Georgia out of the college football playoff. But because I'm not sure Alabama's going to have the resume to get in, even if they beat Georgia. There's so many teams ahead of them, and I know one of them is going to go away, possibly 2 of them, if Oregon and Washington play each other as well. So we'll have to see. National rankings, they're 49th in offense, 17th in defense, and that strength of schedule is 3rd. Another reason to put them over Oregon, because Oregon's 62nd. And I know Oregon's going to improve this week after the Oregon State game, but right now Alabama still has the 3rd. And that defense is stout. It's kind of like a no-name defense. They have a lot of good players, but they're playing really good football at the moment. So their player of the game, they played Chattanooga over the weekend, and they easily won. It was 66-10. So I chose Devonta Smith. Not the Devonta Smith you know, the Heisman Trophy winner, but they share the name. He's a defensive back. He played his first game of the season over the weekend, and he had 4 tackles. Let's move on. At number 6, I have the Texas Longhorns. They keep hanging on to that 6th spot. The AP has them ranked at number 7. I'm keeping them at 6 because I have Oregon down. They still have the big win against Alabama. 2 other top wins with Kansas and Kansas State. They do have the defeat to Oklahoma in the Red River Showdown, which was a 34-30 loss. The reason I'm saying they need to beat Texas Tech is if they lose, their conference record will fall to 7-2. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Kansas State are sitting at 6-2. They have a chance to win as well, which would leave 4 teams at 7-2 in the conference, and they would go to tiebreakers. Texas controls their own destiny. They beat Texas Tech, and then they will get a top 25 matchup of one of those 3 teams, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, or Kansas State. I hope it's Oklahoma or Kansas State because those were 2 very good football games. Their player of the game over the weekend was C.J. Baxter. He's a freshman, wears number 4. He had 117 yards rushing with 5 catches and 13 yards. That's very big for them. They lost Jonathan Brooks the following week against TCU. He tore his ACL. At this time, he is still the 12th leading rusher in the nation. That shows you how well he was doing. And if you look at their rankings, their offense is 15th, their defense is 38th. This is a solid football team. But like I said, they've got to win out to even have a shot at the college football playoff. At number 5, I have the Michigan Wolverines. They still have the win against Penn State. That's why I have them down, mostly for resume. And if you want to do the eye test, they haven't been looking good without Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines. They're winning the games, but they're not winning them as convincingly as they were before. Granted, they have been playing a little better teams. But either way, the big game against Ohio State is this weekend. I can't wait. It's one of my favorite games of the year to watch. And that's going to determine who goes to the college football playoff for the Big Ten. Because if you lose this game, you're not going to have a shot to make it because their strength of schedules, their resumes are just not going to be good enough to get back because it's so loaded at the top. For it to happen, there would be so many things that would have to happen this weekend. So many other teams would have to lose one more game, and I just don't see that happening. So for Michigan, their player of the game over the weekend was Junior Colson. He's a linebacker number 25. He had 8 tackles, which led the team against Maryland. Their national rankings is 54th on offense. They have the number 1 defense in the nation with the 47th overall strength of schedule. So let's get to the big game Saturday and see how it goes. At number 4, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes. I still have them 1 spot ahead of Michigan because they beat Notre Dame and they have that 1 extra quality win. The eye test is proven right now they're playing better football than Michigan is. I know Michigan, with all of the stuff that's going on with the sign stealing scandal, they are saying it's Michigan versus everybody. So we will see. I said a while back they needed to get their rushing game back, and they have. And if you look at their rankings, overall they have a better offense. Now, they still have the third best defense in the nation. Michigan has number one, so we're about to see two of the top three defenses in the nation play each other. So it's going to come down to which offense can get rolling. Is it going to be McCarthy and Corum, or is it going to be McCord and Harrison and Henderson? Well, I just said three for Ohio State. I think Ohio State has a really good chance of going into Ann Arbor in the Big House and winning this game. I will be honest with you, I'm going to be more of a fan this time and show a little bias. I really hope Michigan wins this game. So whoever wins this game is going to have the best chance of remaining undefeated and having a shot at going to the college football playoff. At number 3, I have the Florida State Seminoles. Remaining at number 3, I still like this team. I know that their resume and eye test might not be adding up to Ohio State right now, but I actually think so. The only problem is they just lost Jordan Travis, their star, which is tremendous for this team. Not only is he their best offensive player, but he is such a leader for this team. It really stinks to see a team undefeated, having a shot at going to play a national championship, lose their star quarterback. Now, the player of the game over the weekend was their rushing attack. They came in after Travis got hurt, and they had 248 yards of rushing to help out those backup quarterbacks. Florida State tried out both of their backup quarterbacks. Their national rankings, they have the 17th best offense and 24th best defense, which is a good average. Their strength of schedule is 50th. They have already made it to the ACC championship to play hopefully Louisville, and that would help them. But they still have to go to the Swamp this weekend and play Florida. But here's the thing, both teams are coming in with a backup quarterback, so I think with that rushing attack in that defense, Florida State will still beat the Gators. They still have a very good shot at going undefeated. The ACC championship becomes much more interesting with them losing Travis. I'm sure they're going to be testing both quarterbacks, Brock Glenn and Roadmaker, against Florida, even though you have to kind of be careful there because Florida's good enough. They played Missouri very well this weekend that they could pull off an upset and it would knock them out of the college football playoff probably. So let's move on to our last two teams. At number 2, I have the Georgia Bulldogs. I have them staying at number 2. They are looking better and better each week, and they're going to have a chance to prove that they are the number 1 team. They have been showing it week after week recently. They play their rival this week with Georgia Tech. They should be able to beat Georgia Tech, and then they have the huge SEC championship game against Alabama. And if they take care of business against Alabama, they will definitely make it to the college football playoff. So the player of the week I had for them was Dylan Bell. I've actually mentioned him before, but he had an incredible game. He had a passing TD and 90 yards receiving with another TD, which was really impressive. Their national rankings is the best in the nation overall. Their offense is the 4th in the nation. Carson Beck is the 7th leading passer in the nation currently. Their defense is 9th in the nation, but that strength of schedule is only 43rd. That will move up when they play Alabama, but right now they're passing everything. They're passing the resume, they're passing the eye test. Everything is going well for Georgia. It's really coming down to, can Georgia win the SEC championship, and that's where we are with Georgia. At number 1, I still have the Washington Huskies. They just went through a gauntlet of 3 straight wins against top 20 teams, similar to Georgia. Now look, I think Oregon State is better than Tennessee. Utah and USC, okay, they're not looking as good as Ole Miss, but those are still 3 really good football teams, and then they still have a top 10 win against Oregon, and everybody's loving Oregon right now. I don't see why AP and the college football playoff is not ranking Washington higher. I'm just not getting it right now. Tennessee just got destroyed 2 weeks in a row. So Georgia, that game, yeah, they're killing a lot of teams, but Oregon State, I think, is a pretty good team. Washington plays Washington State this week, and then for the Pac-12 championship, they will either play Oregon or Arizona. Oregon's got to win out to make it. If they don't, it's going to open the door for Arizona. My player of the game this past weekend for the Huskies was Carson Bruner. He's their linebacker number 42. He had 14 tackles against Oregon State. I'm showing all their quality wins. Let's look at their rankings. And this is what you could heavily debate with me. And I debated on this for a little bit on Washington and Georgia. Their national rankings, they have the 8th best offense, which is lower than Georgia. We all know they have Penix. They have Odunze. They have a good running game now. So their offense is just as good. But the kicker is that 98th ranked defense. The defense held up against Oregon, and that's how they got the win. But can it again? We'll have to see. And even if Oregon slips up and Arizona comes into the Pac-12 championship, if I was the Huskies, I would not overlook Arizona either. That could be a huge upset in the Pac-12 championship. So they still got to beat Washington State. Washington State is still playing well. And then they'll have the chance to remain undefeated with whoever they play in the Pac-12 championship. And that is my top 12 right now. Let's get on to the rest of the field. Now the remaining, starting at 13, we have Ole Miss, 14, Penn State. I have Arizona jumping them just because eye test and resume, I just think Arizona shows more than those two teams right now. And then if we move down to 15, we have undefeated Liberty. And then we have 16, we have LSU. 17, Oregon State falling down after their loss to Washington. Kansas State moving up just a little bit. They beat Kansas over the weekend. Notre Dame moving up just a little bit as well, going to 19. James Madison falling because they got beat by Appalachian State over the weekend. Tulane moving up a little bit. Iowa moves down. And I'm going to explain Iowa one more time. Iowa, I know they only got 2 losses, but they have the very worst offense in the nation. I know they have a top 10 defense, but that offense is so pathetic. God, man, it's painful to watch. And it's going to be painful to watch them play the winner of the big game over the weekend, Ohio State or Michigan. I just barely think they fall into the top 25. We'll go ahead and finish up. Oklahoma State's another one. Man, they got killed by UCF 2 weeks ago, 45-3. I almost couldn't put them in the top 25. And then I have Clemson moving up. They actually beat North Carolina, who I had ranked last week. And then I actually have Texas A&M coming in to replace Tennessee. A lot of people have Tennessee remaining in the top 25. Tennessee got destroyed in the past 2 weeks by Georgia and Mizzou. They do not belong in the top 25, and they hadn't beat a top 25 team. Also had Kansas falling out. They were ranked 25th last week for me. They got beat by a good Kansas State team, but I have them knocked out. And then Utah, who got destroyed by Arizona, I have them falling out. So those were my 4 teams falling out, was Kansas, Tennessee, Utah, and North Carolina. And then that completes my top 25. Let's get on to the bracket. So we'll start on the left-hand side of the bracket. We would have 8 Oregon or 9 Mizzou, the winner of that game playing Washington. At the bottom of the bracket, we would have the winner of Arizona and Michigan playing Ohio State. On the top right-hand side, we'd have the winner of Oklahoma and Texas playing Florida State. And then at the bottom, we'd have Louisville and Alabama. That winner would go on to play Georgia. So next week will be really interesting because it will end the season and we can really fill this out and see what it would really look like. Because I don't think we would get a lot of these Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State rematches. That concludes the bracket for Week 13. Thank you for listening to Spider Red. Tell somebody you love them. Later.